This is an analysis from Alpha Business Media. Today, we're taking a close look at Nepal's ambitious program of legislative reforms, a plan that's really designed to reshape the country's entire economic future.
So the government has kicked off what many are calling a second wave of liberalization. And, this isn't just happening out of the blue. It's really being driven by Nepal's upcoming graduation from its status as a least developed country, or LDC. Now, that's a big deal because it means losing special trade benefits. So there's this urgent need to pivot, to build a much more self-sufficient and competitive economy.
But here's the catch. There's this deep, persistent gap between what's written down in these new laws and what's actually happening on the ground. And that gap, well, it defines both the opportunities and the very real risks here. So let's dive into the first big piece of this puzzle: investment.
All right, Section 1, the investment paradox. Are we looking at open doors but empty rooms? The heart of this whole reform package is a massive push to attract foreign direct investment, FDI. The government is trying to tear down all these old bureaucratic walls to send a clear message: Nepal is open for business. And when you look at the changes, they're really going for it. We're seeing things like an automatic route for quicker approvals, and they've lowered the minimum investment amount quite a bit. They're even making it easier for investors to take their profits out of the country. That's called profit repatriation. And they're allowing Nepali IT firms to invest abroad for the first time. The whole package is designed to shout, "We mean business."
And at first glance, it looks like it's working. After these reforms kicked in, the pledges to invest, what we call declared FDI commitments, shot up. At their peak, they grew by a staggering 92.6%.
But here's that paradox we mentioned. All those promises, well, the actual money flowing into the country is a different story. It's still incredibly low, less than 0.1% of GDP. So why the huge disconnect? What's really going on here? Well, the bottom line is that changing the laws on paper just isn't enough. You've got these deep-rooted systemic problems, things like corruption, political instability, and just ineffective administration that are still scaring investors away. And this gap between policy and practice, it isn't just about investment. We see the same kind of problem playing out in another really complex area: land reform.
Okay, moving on to our second section. A dilemma over land. Is this about development or is it about justice? The new land reforms are maybe the trickiest part of this whole overhaul because they're trying to solve two completely opposite problems at the same time. And this is where you see a major conflict. On one side, the bill is designed to kickstart the real estate market by making it easier for big developers to acquire land. But on the other side, it makes this big promise to deliver social justice to the landless, which is actually a requirement in their constitution. So you've got these two competing goals baked into one law. Naturally, this dual approach has drawn a lot of fire. Critics are saying it's really just a smokescreen to help out powerful developers. In fact, one opponent called it, and I'm quoting here, a case of corruption at the political level designed to benefit the land mafia and brokers. And this highlights the biggest risk, that the part of the law that helps developers, the profitable part, gets pushed through quickly and efficiently. Meanwhile, the socially complicated part, actually helping the landless, just gets stuck on paper. If that happens, you could see food security threatened, housing become even more unaffordable, and ultimately, inequality just gets worse. This brings us to our third section, the labor contradiction. Is this whole economic plan being built on a foundation of sand? Because in the labor market, we see yet another one of these stark contradictions between official policy and the day-to-day reality for workers. So, the official goal sounds great. The government has announced this big decade of domestic employment promotion running from 2025 to 2035. And they're also planning to raise the minimum wage from its current level of 17,300 Nepalese rupees. It all looks good on paper. But then you look at the data. A recent report from Nepal's main trade union federation tells a very different story, and it's not a good one. The number of companies breaking the minimum wage law is actually up. The use of insecure outsourced labor has jumped significantly in just 1 year. And get this, nearly a third of companies aren't even giving their workers mandatory breaks. The situation seems to be getting worse, not better. And this whole trend towards insecure work is made so much worse by a social security system that just isn't cutting it. It only covers about 17% of the population. That means the vast majority of workers, especially those in informal or outsourced jobs, are left with absolutely no safety net. So let's pull all this together for our conclusion: a future on the edge.
What you should be taking away from all this is a picture of a country at a really critical crossroads. You have these incredibly ambitious reforms that are again and again being undermined by three fundamental contradictions. First, you have the investment gap, where great-sounding laws just aren't bringing in real money because of poor governance. Second, there's the land paradox, a policy that could end up helping developers much more than the poor it claims to serve. And third, the structural flaw in the labor market, where the whole economic model seems to be built on a foundation of insecure work. What this all shows is that success here isn't about the laws themselves, it's about the political will to actually implement them fairly and effectively. Which leaves us with the critical question. Will this legislative blitz actually build a foundation for shared prosperity and sustainable growth, or will it just end up deepening the divide and making inequality worse?